The Jets host the Buffalo Bills on Monday Night Football. And even though it's week 6, I think it's fair to say the season is on the line in this game. Let's discuss the stakes today on Locked On Jets.
You are Locked On Jets, your daily New York Jets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome. This is the Locked On Jets podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It's Monday, October 14th, 2024, and I'm your host, John B. from GangGreenNation.com. Thanking you so much for making the show your first listen or first watch every day. This is a daily podcast covering the New York Jets. We have new episodes each day through the week, Monday through Friday, and today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Well, the New York Jets are in action tonight, 8:15 p.m. Eastern time against the Buffalo Bills, Monday Night Football. The game will be broadcast on both ESPN and ABC. Or if you want to watch the Manning cast with Peyton and Eli, they'll show the game on ESPN too. You'll get to laugh along with them. No matter how you want to watch the game, I think this is a pivotal game for the New York Jets. I normally would not say this about a Week 6 game, but we've talked a lot this season about the interesting dynamics, the unique dynamics around this football team, where you've essentially tried to throw together a contending team on the fly. So this is a team that needs to prove early in the season that it can stand toe-to-toe with the best teams in the league. But there are other dynamics at play in this game. And I think that when we look back in January and February, after the season's over, and we think about whether or not the 2024 New York Jets were a successful football team, we will probably look back at Week 6 against the Buffalo Bills as a turning point either way. Let me tell you something you may not know, something that may surprise you, something that probably will surprise you based on this team's performance today, because this team has not played very good football so far. And I know this is a team that feels like it's in turmoil right now. 2 straight losses, really a team that's played poorly 4 of the 5 times it's taken the field. The only time this Jets team has played at a high level was the game against the New England Patriots. And that's a game that took place against one of the worst teams in the league. Despite all that, if the New York Jets win this football game tonight, they are in first place in the AFC East. You know, our buddy Joe Marino of Locked On Bills said it perfectly when we did our crossover show on Thursday. Somebody's got to win this division. There are only 4 teams. None of them it's possible none of them are very good. Somebody's got to win this division. And I think that the importance of this game has only increased over the last week, in part because the Jets decided to make the biggest change a team can make in season. They changed their head coach. They went from Robert Saleh to Jeff Ulbrich, and Robert Saleh, not a very popular guy in the fan base. And I think that's just Robert Saleh, 20-36 record, a guy who struggled in his game management, a guy who struggled building a coaching staff, a guy who struggled to build an offense. You know, he had some positive attributes. The way he built the defense was pretty good, but not a guy anybody's going to cry for. That said, you know, a coaching change doesn't necessarily help fix all the problems with your football team. And I think the Jets' problems go beyond coaching. And if you listen to what the players were saying after the firing of Saleh, I did not get the sense that there was this great relief in the locker room. You know, last year when the Raiders fired Josh McDaniels, it felt like those guys, you know, kind of had a new lease on life. It felt like, you know, a breath of fresh air had descended upon the Raiders locker room. And sometimes what happens is the team comes out really fired up after a coaching change because they didn't like the old coach. I don't get for all of Robert Saleh's flaws, and there were many, I don't get the feeling the players disliked him. And you get the sense that the players were really caught off guard by this. You got the feeling that Woody Johnson did not take the pulse of the locker room before he made this move. Doesn't necessarily mean the move was unjust. It doesn't necessarily mean the move was wrong. But if we're talking about how the team's going to perform, it's an interesting thing to watch. If the Jets win this game, you know, maybe the guys will start to believe, all right, new leadership, a fresh start. We turn the page. We can get rolling. You know, it happens so frequently in the NFL. You see it every year where a team gets off to a slow start and things just snowball on them and they're never able to recover. And at some point, somebody needs to step up and make a play. At some point, you know, units on the team need to step up. You need to have leadership. You need to stop the slide. And if the Jets can do that and get to 3-3, they're not in terrible shape right now. Now, I think realistically, based on what we've seen from Rodgers at his age, based on what we've seen how the way other players are aging, other big name guys like Tyron Smith and Mike Williams maybe aren't aging as gracefully as we wanted them to. I think we need to reassess our expectations for this football team. I think we need to reassess whether this is actually a team that has a good shot of making the Super Bowl. But the Jets don't necessarily need to be a great team to win the AFC East. There only are 4 teams in this division. Two of them have enormous problems. New England and Miami right now, I mean, it's tough to see them going on a run. I know Miami could get Tua back, but that's a team that has problems. Even if they get Tua back, that's a team with issues. The other two teams are the Jets and Buffalo. These are the two teams that are fighting it out in this game. Well, if Buffalo loses this game, they look very ordinary. This does not look like a powerhouse team. And we're used to the Bills being at the top of the AFC. They have not gone to the Super Bowl yet in this era. They have not gone to the Super Bowl yet since the Marv Levy, Jim Kelly years in the 90s. But this is a team you're used to seeing stand toe to toe against, Kansas City and Cincinnati in the playoffs. And yeah, they lose to those teams, but they stand toe to toe with them. They've showed that they're on the top level of the AFC East. This year's Bills team may not be on that level. This is a team that lost a lot of key pieces on both sides of the ball this offseason. If they lose this game to fall to 3-3, I think that's the point where you have to say, you know what, even with Josh Allen, even with some of the key pieces they have, this may not be the toughest team to beat. And if you look at the way this Jets team's performing, and again, if you look at the way Rodgers is aging, or Tyron Smith or Mike Williams seem to be aging, this is not a team that looks like much of a threat to win 12 games. But if the Jets beat Buffalo tonight and Buffalo falls to 3-3, this could be a situation where you say, you know what, maybe 9-8 does it. Even if the Jets are an average football team, they might be able to sneak into the playoffs. And, from there, who knows? If the Jets lose this game, they fall to 2-4. And that's the point where it really will feel like this thing is starting to snowball on this team. Now they'll be instead of being in first place, they'll be 2 games back of Buffalo in this division. And Buffalo will have a head-to-head tiebreaker by virtue of their victory in this game. And that's the point where you start to wonder. And every year you see some team that gets really hyped in the preseason. You see some team that all the pundits are NFL Network and ESPN. They keep talking about all these key offseason moves that they made, but it just doesn't gel. It happens every single year, or almost every single year. And it's looking like right now that team could be the Jets unless they turn it around. And you tack onto that the coaching change. And I'm not saying Robert Saleh necessarily would have saved the season, but I think even the biggest fan of this coaching change would have to admit that on some level, it's kind of a desperation move. And desperation moves don't tend to not calm the locker room. They tend to only create, for a team in chaos, a desperation move tends to create only more chaos. And these are the forces the Jets are fighting against. If you go out and get a win in this game, it feels less chaotic. You have something that's to settle things down. If you lose this game against your top division rival, a game where I think the Jets understand the significance of this game, and the Jets are going to throw everything they've got into this one. If you lose this game, it puts you on a very dangerous path, because now you got a game against Pittsburgh, a 4-2 Steelers team, which, for all their offensive issues, for all their issues at quarterback, a team that's always very well coached, a team that's always tough to beat, a team that never has a losing record. And you lose that game, then you're 2-5, and it's really tough to dig out of a 2-5 hole. So this game, I understand there might be some scenario. There are obviously a lot of scenarios where the Jets win this game and nothing happens for this team, because this team's nowhere near as good as it was hyped up to be. There are probably maybe a couple scenarios where the Jets lose this game and somehow find a way to claw themselves out of this hole, but it's really tough. And it feels like a loss in this game would be a really tough lift. If the Jets win this game, then they're right there in the AFC East, a division that may not be that good, and a division that has to send somebody to the playoffs. So those are the stakes for this game. I think even though it's only week 6, and even though, you can say the Jets will have plenty of time to recover, it's only 6 games into the season, 11 to play. If you look at the trajectory the team will come out of this game with, it'll either be feeling really good about itself, or it'll really have the feel of a team that disarray and things falling apart and things snowballing on them. Those are the stakes for this game. Now, head here on the Locked On Jets podcast, we'll talk about a unit which is seeing a lot of changes this week. It's the offense. There's a new play caller. What could Todd Downing change up for this football team? Let's discuss on this Monday edition of Locked On Jets. Today's episode of Locked On Jets is brought to you by Hims. Sometimes intimate moments happen spontaneously, and you want to make sure you're ready for them. Hims provides treatments to help you stay hard and last longer, giving you that boost of confidence so you can be ready whenever the mood strikes. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. Hims provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints and Viagra and Cialis and their generics for up to 95% cheaper. The process is 100% online, so there's no need for an uncomfortable doctor's visit. Just answer a series of questions on the site, and a medical provider will determine the right treatment option. If prescribed, your medication ships directly to you in discreet packaging for free. No insurance is needed, and one low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. With hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, HIMS can help you find the ED option that works for you. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedonnfl. That's HIMS.com/lockedonnfl for your personalized ED treatment options. hims.com/lockedonnfl. The products mentioned are chewable compounded products, which are not approved for or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. Today's episode of Locked On Jets is also brought to you by Hillsdale College. Time is our most precious commodity, so don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. How can you spend it wisely to improve yourself? Our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free online courses, including Constitution 101, the meaning and history of the Constitution, Introduction to Free Market Economics, The Great American Story, A Land of Hope, and The Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire. All of Hillsdale's courses are self-paced, so you can start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, and discussions, or just enjoy the lectures. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. hillsdale.edu/lockedon. Thank you so much for making Locked On Jets your first listener, first watch every day. A big shout out to everydayers. This is a daily podcast covering the New York Jets. We have new episodes each day through the week, Monday through Friday. Jets and Bills, 8:15 p.m. Eastern Time, ESPN, ABC, Manning Cast on ESPN2, if that's your preferred method of watching. A huge game for the New York Jets. I think it's fair to say the season is on the line for the team in this game. How did the Jets win this game? Well, the Jets shook up their offensive coaching staff this week. Nathaniel Hackett is out as play caller. He technically retains the title of offensive coordinator, but it sounds like Todd Downing is taking over the offense. Todd Downing has been the passing game coordinator and the quarterback's coach for the team, previously an offensive coordinator with the Tennessee Titans. And if you spoke with Tennessee Titans fans, he's about as popular in Tennessee as Nathaniel Hackett is in New York. Look, I don't think it's fair to expect Todd Downing to work miracles. It's difficult to take over a team on the fly and make big wholesale adjustments on offense. He cannot install a new system. And quite frankly, I mean, Todd Downing is not a very good offensive coordinator. I think the best thing you can say about Todd Downing is that he's not Nathaniel Hackett. The other issue with this offense is that Aaron Rodgers controls a lot of it. And if you don't like the play calling, listen, I have not liked the play calling. You can only blame so much of that on Hackett. Rodgers controls a lot at the line of scrimmage. He's in many instances, he's deciding what play the Jets are actually running. He essentially has a menu of options on most plays, but he's the guy making a lot of the calls. So as much as I wanted Hackett to go, look, part of it's just two generations of this family have tormented me. Paul Hackett, Nathaniel's father, was the Jets offensive coordinator from 2001 to 2004. And if the Locked On Jets podcast was active from 2001 to 2004, we would have so many episodes with me complaining about Paul Hackett. So two generations of this. I really hope Nathaniel Hackett doesn't have a son who goes into coaching. If he goes into coaching, good luck. But just please don't come take over the Jets offense in 2044. Just no more of this. I think that Downing, there are some things Downing can fix, however. I think the first thing, and look, a lot of this goes on Keith Carter, the offensive line coach. The Jets need to simplify their blocking assignments, because when I watch the film, it's amazing to me how many times guys just don't know who to block. It's amazing to me at the snap, how many times the Jets bust an assignment because they're in the, and again, part of this goes back to Rodgers because there are some instances where they're in the wrong protection, but on run plays, I mean, guys just don't really know who to block, or, they pull somebody and he blocks the wrong guy. It doesn't feel like that everybody's on the same page. And that goes back to coaching. I'm always a big skeptic of the idea that position coaches really matter all that much, because what tends to happen is when they get good players, position coaches look really good. And when they get bad players, they tend to look really bad. But I do think the offensive line is an area that's an exception. And that's because an offensive line is only as good as your weakest link. And an offensive line is only good if everybody knows the play to execute, because there are all these moving parts. You have five guys trying to work in unison. Everybody needs to block the right guy. Everybody needs to hit the right angle. If you need to pass a guy off, you need to be able to communicate. And the Jets are just failing in these aspects. And I think that's one of the big reasons the Jets can't run the ball. So they need to figure out a way to simplify these assignments, because I think part of it's they don't use a lot of motion, but when they use motion in the run game, it tends to, you're trying to kind of throw the defense off, because when you put a tight end in motion, it creates new gaps that that the defense needs to account for, and you force the defense to shift. It feels like when the Jets motion in the run game, they're just confusing themselves. So maybe simplify that aspect of things. Another thing the Jets need to do is they need to figure out a way to get Breece Hall going. I understand the run block. I just told you the run blocking's bad. So I'm not here denying that the run blocking's bad, but the run blocking was pretty bad for the Jets a year ago. And Breece Hall still broke some big runs. Now, I mean, I don't really know what's going on with Breece right now. He just does not look very dangerous at the moment. And again, like I understand last year, lots of times he got stuffed. That's fine. That's going to happen when you can't run block, but he's not breaking any big runs the way he did a year ago. And I mean, maybe the Jets need to try and figure out ways to get him more involved, more outside runs, more packages with him and Braylon Allen on the field together, fake to Allen, get the ball to Breece, maybe throw him the ball more in the screen, working more in the screen game. The Jets need to get Breece Hall going because this is not an offense that's producing enough big plays right now. And we talk about the issues. I mean, look, the issues are numerous. They may start with Rodgers, who is more and more the deeper we get into the season, looking like a 40-year-old quarterback. The Jets offense needs to figure out ways to produce big plays, and their big play threat, their number one home run hitter, has really not done a whole lot right now. Another thing the Jets need to figure out a way to do is, again, in the idea behind the idea of producing big plays, Aaron Rodgers has to push the ball down the field more. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is, and you watch him, especially, and this has been especially true the last 2 weeks against Minnesota and Denver. He's just like getting rid of the ball the first sign of pressure. He's not standing tough in the pocket. And I understand why, because again, he's 40 and he's acknowledged it. If you watched the game last week with Kurt Warner as the analyst, he mentioned that he spoke with Rodgers, and Rodgers says, you know what, this body's not recovering week to week as well as it used to. And the last 2 games, Rodgers has left less than 100% after taking a big hit. You may remember in the fourth quarter against the Denver Broncos, he took a hit, was kind of limping near the end of that game. The Jets got the ball in the last drive, and Rodgers was less than 100%. He left the game against Minnesota with a sprained ankle. So Rodgers' mobility, which already is not great, maybe even more limited in this game. The Jets still need to figure out ways to push the ball down the field because Jets need to make big plays on offense. Last week against Minnesota, the Jets only had 3 scoring drives. And on all 3 scoring drives, the offense was helped out by another unit. It was the special teams, Xavier Gipson returning a big punt return on the first scoring drive. It was the Vikings helping them out by committing a penalty. Again, it was special teams with the Vikings, committing a roughing the kicker penalty on Thomas Morstead on a punt. A Brandon Eccles interception gave the Jets the short field. This is a sign that when the Jets can only score when they're helped by another unit, it's a sign that they're not producing enough big plays on offense. I don't know what the solution is because a less than 100% Rodgers, well, that's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for him to stand in the pocket. And again, he doesn't move that well when he's healthy at this point. He's not going to move that well with a sprained ankle. So I don't know if they need to like max protect more frequently, maybe utilize. And another problem is their play action just is not fooling anybody. So they need to throw a few wrinkles into their play action because they're not getting the linebackers to bite. Play action can be a great way to push the ball down the field when you're having trouble, pass protecting, or when your quarterback can't move all that well because it kind of freezes the defense. The Jets play action isn't fooling anybody. So maybe they throw a few wrinkles in there that'll trick the Bills. Another thing I'd like to see are just use formations better. I mean, there were probably 2 or 3 times against the Vikings where the Vikings had 2 receivers running wide open because they bunched their receivers all together. You had Jets guys crashing into each other. You had Jets guys messing up their assignments because you have receivers crossing each other. Do you switch it off? Do you not switch it off? Jets seldom do that. And, maybe part of that's Rodgers likes a more static offense, but you know what? You got to help these receivers out. This is a receiving group that just doesn't look all that great right now. And I think that you have to figure out ways to help free them up as best as you can. As one of my criticisms of Nathaniel Hackett is that he didn't do that enough when Garrett Wilson was facing a tough matchup, but you got to do that anyway. I think you split Breece Hall and Braylon Allen wide more because those can be indicators on, what matchups you've got. If a linebacker follows them out of the backfield, when you motion them out of the backfield into the slot, it's probably man-to-man coverage, and Rodgers can do that. But it also could create a mismatch. It could also create the type of matchup that you want. Again, figure out ways to get these guys the ball in space. There are lots of things. Another thing I'd say is player usage. Get rid of the 2 tight end sets. Tyler Conklin's questionable for this game as it is. Jets don't have very much talent at the tight end position. Jets have been one of the worst offenses in the league in the 2 tight end set this year. Get rid of it. Get Braylon Allen more involved. We know we got to get Breece going, but until Breece starts hitting home runs, maybe divide up the touches on the offensive side of the ball at the running back position a little bit more evenly. There are things that Downing can do. Look, Downing's not a great coach. My expectations for him are very low, but there are some, and there's only so much he can do with Rodgers in such control of the offense. But there are some things he can do, and I think he should do them. Now, here on the Locked On Jets podcast, we'll turn our attention to the defensive side of the ball. Jets face a big test taking on a top 5 quarterback in Josh Allen, but the rest of the Bills' offense may not be all that scary. This may come down to what the Jets do against Allen. Let's talk about what they can do as we continue here on this Monday edition of Locked On Jets. Today's episode of Locked On Jets is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less than on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best way to get in on the action in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off, which ones aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on Prize Picks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today. It's Prize Picks and use code LOCKEDONNFL, one word with no space, LOCKEDONNFL, to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. This is the Locked On Jets podcast on this Monday, getting ready for Jets and Bills Week 6 action. First place on the line in the AFC East. May not feel like it for the Jets. It probably doesn't feel like it for the Bills either. The Bills are coming into this game off a 2-game losing streak, but somebody's got to win the AFC East at a big game tonight, a game that really could set the Jets on a trajectory to have a good season or a bad season. And the player everybody will always have their eyes on when the Jets play the Buffalo Bills is Josh Allen, one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL, a perennial MVP candidate. And over the last couple of years, I don't think any team has handled Josh Allen better than the New York Jets. Now, the exception would be that game last year in Buffalo where Allen had a huge day. But especially at MetLife Stadium, the last couple of years, Josh Allen has really struggled. Now, the Jets defense, I think, was a little bit more talented, especially up front in those games. But this is a Buffalo Bills offense that has some issues. And it's not an offense that seems like it has an overwhelming amount of skill talent. And their skill talent may take another hit in this game because Khalil Shakir, wide receiver, and James Cook, running back, both on the injury report for Buffalo, both questionable in this game. And when a player is questionable, even if they play, you wonder if they're less than 100%. So this is the kind of game where, maybe things line up okay for the Jets defense. I hesitate to say that because I feel like whenever I say that, the Jets go out and get crushed. But I think a lot of this comes down to Josh Allen. I think there's more on Josh Allen's plate this year than there's ever been at any point in his career. Stephon Diggs is gone. They've lost some other pieces. It really comes down to, I think this game really comes down to, can Josh Allen carry the Buffalo Bills to victory? And I think there are a couple of things the New York Jets need to do in this game. One is you need to be disciplined when you rush the passer. I think that's an absolute key for this team because we've seen this team be hurt by scramblers. Week 2, Will Levis broke a couple big runs as a scrambler. Bo Nix broke a couple big runs. Even Sam Darnold had a scrambler or two last week. You have to be disciplined. You can't run. You can't run yourself up the field. If you're an edge rusher, you can't run 20 yards up the field past Allen. If you're more on the inside, you have to stay in your lanes. Pass rushers tend to have designated pass rush lanes because you want to constrict the pocket. And you also don't want to give the quarterback a lane where if he sees daylight, he can just take off. We know Allen's a very dynamic runner. We know he can really hurt you as a scrambler. I think that right there is one of the keys. A second thing is, look, I think it's not like the New England game because Buffalo is a much better team. But in that New England game in week 3 on Thursday night, the Jets blitzed a lot. And that's because they did not respect the New England receivers. You look at this Buffalo receiver group. On paper, look, anybody can have a bad game. But on paper, the Jets corners ought to be able to handle this Buffalo receiver group. The Jets, I mean, if Sauce Gardner can't, go one-on-one with these guys, I don't know what we're doing here. DJ Reed's having a phenomenal season. In fact, this might be the first time ever DJ Reed's played better than Sauce Gardner. It's happening right now. DJ Reed's having a monster contract here. He's playing great. Now, the Jets will be without Michael Carter II in this game, so Isaiah Oliver's going to have to step up. But look, this is not a dynamic Buffalo Bills receiver group. And we know that, especially last year, the 5 turnover game, Josh Allen in MetLife Stadium has shown a tendency when he's been stressed to put the ball in dangerous places. And it's not just in MetLife Stadium. Josh Allen's a phenomenal quarterback, but we know he's not always safe with the football. That's been a little different this year. But Josh, quarterbacks always revert to their old tendencies. And if we're talking about the Jets corners holding up one-on-one with Allen, that means you can send more blitzes at him, which also helps kind of mitigate the issues you may have with him as a scrambler. Because if you send big blitzes at him and everybody has an assigned rush lane, there's less daylight. There are going to be less lanes that will open up for him. Maybe you force him into the big mistake. Maybe he tries to do too much, because right now Josh Allen has to do it all for Buffalo. This is not an offense that has the amount of talent we've become accustomed to. This is an offense that, is really dependent on the quarterback right now. And the third thing, look, I mean, the Jets, I don't care who the Jets are playing right now. I'm going to be worried about their run defense. Their run defense has been very inconsistent, and even within games, it's inconsistent. Both Tennessee and Minnesota, they had awful first halves in run defense, played better in the second half. Against Denver, it was the opposite. In Denver, they played pretty well the first half in the run defense, got kind of gashed in the second half. Maybe it's not a bad run defense, but it's a very inconsistent run defense. It's not a run defense that's producing the results the Jets need. And I don't know that there are many schematic fixes for your run defense. I think that your run defense, you guys just need to control the trenches. You guys need to play better. And we've been talking all season long about Quinnen Williams. When's he going to step up? When's he going to have a big game? I've been dismissing the idea that we should be worried about Quinnen. Well, it's week 6. It's time for Quinnen Williams to step up. If it's time for the entire Jets team to step up, this is the game. It's now or never for the Jets. Jets lose this game and fall to 2-4. It's a very difficult hole to climb out of, in part because at 2-4, we'll have to question, is this team even that good? Is the team, if this team can't win more than 2 of its first 6 games, why would we have faith that this team can dig out of this hole? These are the questions at this game. I think it's a pivotal game for the New York Jets. But that's all for today's episode. This has been the Locked On Jets podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day is our motto. If you enjoy the show, hit the subscribe button where you're watching or listening so that you'll never miss an episode. If you enjoy the show and are listening on a podcast source, please give it a 5-star review. Helps us out, helps other Jets fans find the podcast. Enjoy the game. We'll be back after the game to break down what happens between the Jets and the Bills on Monday Night Football.